So throughout the coming sessions, I'm going to speak about things that are not taught in college, because these are the areas in which we stumble as we enter into medical missionary work. Responsibilities are thrust upon us, but we are not equipped to handle those. And then we start getting into a lot of difficulties. So let us go. This session is going to be about stock taking and planning. So where do we start? Maybe many of you are already working in a mission hospital. Some of you are still in college. Some of you have completed college and you are thinking about what you want to do. So for those of you who are still in college, I suggest that you imagine that you have completed, you have finished your college, and you're looking at where to go, or you have already been to a hospital and you can imagine that you are now working there, maybe as the medical superintendent. You are running that hospital. So if you are in an existing mission hospitals, do they have a mission statement? Do they have a vision statement, core values? If not, I think we should now write them down. Do they have a memorandum of association? All our hospitals, NGO hospitals, I'm not very sure about all the other countries, but since we all follow British law, which was handed down to us at the time of independence, except Nepal. I think Nepal also follows the same system. Our hospitals usually exist as societies or trusts or companies, and they will have documents. So what do our documents say? And do we have a strategic plan? And if I take stock of my hospital today, are we sick or are we healthy? So suppose we are going to start a pioneering work. Let us say that the state of Arunachal Pradesh in India does not have a mission hospital. So our objective is to start a hospital in that state. So what do we want to do? We want to start a hospital in the state of Arunachal Pradesh. So should we start a society or a trust or a company? Where exactly do we want to work in that state? It's a huge state. We need to find a location. Who is going to come and work with us? And when we go to that place, we should say that these are the people who are our special targets. So who are those people? So like when we did all this work in the early days at Mukunda, we did not have electricity. So obviously you can imagine that we don't have access to the internet. But today it is not so. Most of this background work or research can be done just sitting at home and just searching through the internet. There are so many sites from which we can get the information we need. Earlier in this year, I attended a mission training conference arranged by the Evangelical Medical Fellowship of India. And about 50 medical students were given the 50 worst districts of India. And they were asked over a period of 5 days to choose any one district and plan a new hospital there over the next 20 years or 15 years. And they did a fantastic job. In 6 days, in 5 days, they all had a strategic plan. And that is the exercise that we are going to go through this session. So I already said to you that many of our mission hospitals are not doing well. So why are they not doing well? There are many reasons, and these are some of them. There is no vision. So if you go and ask the leadership team, what is your plan for the next 5 years? And they will say to run the hospital. We say, oh yeah, that we know, but what exactly do you hope to achieve? we want all our staff to be happy, and we want the hospital to make enough money. So that is an example of no vision. And then there is non-objective decision making, which means if you ask what exactly do you want to do next year, the one big thing that you want to do next year, and somebody says, I want to buy a MRI machine. So why? No, because I like it. Because there isn't one here. But we haven't had a proper justification to buy that machine. Then there is erosion of core values. So I will come to that later on in this presentation. But many of these mission hospitals were established by pioneers with great passion, and they had well written down core values which were translated into actual practices and protocols in the hospital. And over a period of time, that has been lost. This is called mission drift. Not only vision is lost, core values are lost, and soon we are a shadow of what we were many years ago. Inability to meet regulatory requirements. The government suddenly says, you can't run the hospital with these number of staff, you need more. And if you cannot immediately make arrangements for more people to join, the hospital is closed. And sometimes hospitals are closed for reasons beyond our control. There is a war, hospitals are closed. Government takes over a hospital, and the hospital is closed. So those are beyond our control. And sometimes we are used to a lot of support, and suddenly that support is withdrawn. So this is what we are going to cover. So I will not go into the details now. So what is strategic planning? So strategic planning is to make a plan for the future. We envision what will happen the next 20 years or next 30 years. So you can broadly divide that into business planning and planning for transformation. So business planning is what everybody does, not just mission hospitals, corporate hospitals, government hospitals, all hospitals do business planning. So they want finances to be well planned. Income should meet expenditure. So that is business planning. Meeting regulatory requirements. Under the law, our hospital needs to have so many staff. It needs to have so many facilities, and we meet those facilities. Meeting the expectations of patients, the people who come to us, various other stakeholders. Recognition and rewards. We want to be recognized. So those are, and to meet quality standards. Quality standards may not be mandatory, sometimes they are optional. But as a Christian mission hospital, we are going beyond business planning. We are going at planning for transformation. So for transformation, we need to know who are the people we want to transform, who are our target population. So what are their characteristics? Where do they live? What is their culture? How can we reach them? Because we need to close the gap. We need to make them feel welcome, and they must be happy to come and get treated in our hospital or in our community programs. We need to make projects which will have permanent effect, not 1 year effect or 2 years of effect. We must enter into partnerships and empower our communities. And all this must be done in a realistic time frame within what is our constraints. So strategic planning helps define what the institution hopes to achieve over a period of time. So for us at Makunda, we had wanted to do something over a period of 30 years. So why 30 years? Because when we came here, we are a part of Emmanuel Hospital Association, and the leaders in Delhi said that we do not want to make this hospital as a member of our association unless you are willing to stay long term, because we don't have somebody else to take over the work if you decide to leave. So when we asked, what do you mean by long term? They said, till you retire. And when was that? 30 years from now. So since we are going to be here for 30 years, we made a 30-year strategic plan. And strategic plan is used to orient our staff to the mission and help them to understand their role. And if you have something that is written down, we can measure our progress and see whether we are on track. So there is a difference between the regular strategic plan and the Christian strategic plan. The Christian strategic plan factors in the power of God. So we know the story of the spies who went into the promised land. So Joshua and Caleb said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. But other people said, no, we can't. There are giants there. So a Christian strategic plan overcomes obstacles that are visible by something that is not visible, and that is faith. We should be able to see through eyes of faith at an outcome which cannot logically be visualized because of the enormous difficulties that are there before us. We need to factor in the wisdom of God. So when we came here, I had no experience at all in administration or finance or law or anything else that is needed to run a hospital. So how do we run the hospital? Especially when you do not know why a document is worded in a particular way, how to plan a budget, you don't know anything. But the Bible says that when we go somewhere in God's plan, He is there with us. He is standing next to us. And when we come to a fork in the road and we do not know right or left, we can hear in our voice, a voice in our ears, this is the way, walk in it. So in all these years, I have had to take many decisions. Our management committees had to take many decisions. And each time we were sometimes wondering whether this is better or that is better. But there is always one correct way forward. And that correct way became clear to us. So we need to factor in the wisdom of God, which can overcome our human weakness. We are not prepared for a great job like that. So who will make a plan? It is the people who have a vision. So in our hospital, at that early part of our time here, my wife and me had this great plan of something wonderful happening here and transformational impact and poor people getting treated. But if you ask the rest of the staff, they would say our plan would be to close down this hospital as quickly as possible so that each one of us can get a piece of land. So now I think you will know who is the person who should make the plan. So we need a small group of people who have a vision, a God-given vision, and they start the process of making a strategic plan. What is the timeline? A period of time when the people making the plan are going to be present. So you cannot make a 50-year strategic plan and plan to stay only for 30 years, because the next 20 years, somebody else is going to be running the hospital, and you cannot thrust upon them a plan that they did not make. We need to examine all our documents. What do they say? What are the laws of the land? What does it take to run a hospital in Nepal or in Bangladesh or in Pakistan or in India? We need to understand what it involves. I already spoke about this SWOT analysis, and we will look at an example. So I told you about studying the documents. So I told you about a document called the Memorandum of Association. So this is a document that is presented to the Registrar of Societies, Registrar of Trusts, or the Registrar of Companies. So it contains certain things in it. The first thing is it contains a list of primary objects. So these are the activities that the entity hopes to carry out. So if you are working in an existing hospital, we need to look at our document and see what we can and cannot do. So that is very important. For example, suppose I want to start a school, and then you start a school, you hire teachers, and then when you come to class 4 or 5, you go and try to register your school, and then they ask you for a copy of your memorandum of association, and to your horror, you find that it does not mention school at all. You are only allowed to run a hospital. So that is the importance of making sure that all the activities that are planned in the strategic plan fit into any one or more objects. If you are going to start a new hospital, then you can make the document. So then you can say, oh, these are all the things I would like to do, and make sure that each one of them is added as objects. So what is the area of operation? So it can be your state or your part of the district. For our hospital, our area of operation is the Union of India. So that is very important, because some years ago we wanted to start a hospital in another state, in the state of Tripura. So if our area of operation did not include Tripura, we are legally not allowed to buy or hold land or start anything over there. Usually, the memorandum of association for a charitable institution says that the assets at its disposal can only be used to obtain its objects, which are given above. And then there are bylaws. What are bylaws? Bylaws define the objects, just like an adjective defines a noun. So, for example, we have a school. So, our bylaw says that the school will primarily be run for the Christian minority population. So, it defines the scope of the school. And the memorandum of association also may have a clause which says, how can this society be dissolved? So we need to look through this document. Sometimes it is forgotten. It might have been written 100 years ago, and sometimes we do not even know where it is. So if that is the case, we can apply to the Registrar of Societies and ask for a copy, so that we know exactly what we can and cannot do. And then many of our hospitals are part of a church, a diocese, or a part of an association. So what are the documents which define our relationship to that? So these are some things that we need to look through. So as an example, Makunda Society's objects say that we can run a hospital for leprosy and general patients. We can run schools and colleges, nursing schools for local people and the staff. We can run a farm. We can start club societies and trusts. And all these activities should be of a charitable nature and focused on the poor and marginalized. These activities should be within the Union of India. So we cannot do anything in another country directly. All assets and income can only be used for the above objects. So we cannot change the main objects, but we can modify the bylaws. So out of all this exercise, we first write a mission statement, a vision statement, core values, and then this is what I had presented in the beginning. So this is Makunda's mission statement. So if you look at it, it is divided into 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph says that we will work for the people of Northeast India by providing high quality medical care that is affordable. And to do that, we will develop appropriate models. So that is quite clear. The second one is for the other activities, because there is a provision to start schools and colleges, and we have this 350 acres of land. So we have said that aims to provide comprehensive services to all, irrespective of caste, religion, race, or sex, with all the assets at its disposal and through collaboration with other like-minded agencies to improve the social, economic, and spiritual lives of our target people. And the last one is to train people, to create and to sustain a pool of trained manpower and inculcate in them the values of Christian service as exemplified by the life of our Lord Jesus Christ. So once this mission statement is made, everything that we do, all our activities must be derived out of this. It must be explained to our staff. It must be explained to our partners. Only then it becomes something that is very real to us. For the vision statement, we adopted the vision statement of Emmanuel Hospital Association, which is very simple. The vision statement actually says how the mission statement will be done. So here it says, we are a fellowship for transformation through caring. And then there are core values. So these are some core values. We will be transparent. Transparent means what? Everybody knows everything. That means the people who need to know everything. So for example, in our management committee, at the beginning of every management committee meeting, a few slides are presented which tell all the members exactly how much money we have, exactly how much bills are pending, and what are the plans for the next month. And everybody gives their opinion. Why not do this? Why not do that? And then we make a draft monthly budget, which is now given to the finance department. So that is transparency. Accountability is when we answer questions. Somebody says, why are you doing this? And we are able to give a satisfactory reply as quickly as possible. And poor consciousness. So we say that our target population are the poor people of this place. So what are the poor consciousness is not just programs. It is in our life. We live for these people. So we must make them welcome the way we talk and the way we treat them. I will come to integrity. So this is integrity. Just an example of one integrity, one core value. So if you look at the second point, do people think that we show favoritism? So in some hospitals, they will say they always take people from that tribe because the director is from that tribe. So how can we prevent that? We change our protocol. So we say that whenever somebody from that particular tribe comes for an interview, another person from the same tribe cannot be part of the interview panel. So we have now made a protocol for integrity. So I already told you about the SWOT analysis. So there is strengths and weaknesses are our internal attributes. So for example, our strength now is we have excellent staff. We have a good track record. Weaknesses, there may be some internal deficiencies which we need to overcome. Opportunities, we have a large target population, hundreds of thousands of people, and no good hospital nearby. What are the threats? Every few months, the government is bringing in a new act. So something can happen outside our control, which can be a threat to us. So now we have different options of what we can do in the next few years. So suppose an option fits into our strengths and into our opportunities, and it is not affected by our existing weaknesses and threats, then no problem. That is an excellent option to adopt. But suppose an option is very important, we need to do this, but it is affected by our existing weakness and threats, then we need to address those weaknesses and threats. So Mukunda strategic plan was started in 93. Initially, as I mentioned, we were the two people who had a vision, but later on, a lot of highly motivated staff joined. So now every one of them is involved in the formulation of the strategic plan. Every year we reported to our governing body. So we divided this 30-year period into 3 phases, phase 1, 2 and 3. So phase 1 was stability. This hospital had no money and there were very hostile staff. So they were ready to beat us up. Actually, I was actually beaten up and they threatened to burn us up in our homes. They filed many criminal cases against us. So this was a difficult situation, but we need to identify and name that problem. This is a problem, and then only we can overcome it. People were not willing to come and work because of the difficulties of a remote place. So how did we, I have taken one of the topics, overcoming work ethic. So there are a large group of staff who don't want to work. How do we make them work? So we divided these people into 2 groups, those who are hardcore and those who are willing to change. So we started working on the people who are willing to change, encouraging them and appreciating them, and slowly one part of them started to change. Then we set very strong personal examples. So some people feel guilty and then they start following you. We start talking to those people who are willing to change. Do you think you are part of the problem here? Do you think you are part of the solution? And soon the ones who want to change, they started to change. We rewarded excellence with responsibilities. A nurse who did her work well became ward in charge. We recruited new staff with high commitment. So we went to all the colleges, nursing colleges, paramedical colleges, medical colleges, and started talking about our work. And the new staff came because they already knew the vision. And some people did not change, and we needed to wait for them to retire. In phase 2, we started 3 big projects. We started a survey of our local communities and found that there was no English medium school. So English is the script used by many of the tribes in Northeast India. So in 2004, we started an English medium school, and today that school has 1,200 children up to class 12. We did a survey of Northeast India and found that there are many communities which cannot support a hospital because they are having a very low density of population. So we thought A&M school could be started to train people as nurse missionaries, and that was done in 2006. This nursing school is now being developed into a college of nursing. And in many parts of Northeast India were affected by militancy, like civil war. And one of that was the state next to us, Tripura. So we did a survey of Tripura and started a hospital there, a branch hospital in the most militant infested place where nobody wanted to go. And that was in 2005. We conducted retreats and meetings for students and started investing time in them. And we also in 2008 started a partnership with the government, because by ourselves we cannot do much, but through partnership with the government, much greater scope of work is opened up. Now we have developed a model which is called the Makunda model, and it has been published recently. I will talk about it in one of the following sessions. We have become a training center for tropical medicine and global health with the university in the Netherlands. We are now working on promotion of missions. So we have learned many things. So we need to disseminate those learnings so that others can benefit. And seeking new partnerships. So many research projects, many other partners have joined with us. And we started to develop our campus with some new projects. And in the future, maybe we can start new training programs. Maybe we can work in other places of need. Like neighboring countries, I said that we cannot physically start anything there, but we can help with planning and training and things like that. So we need to look at stock taking. So every year, we look at what we had planned should happen in this year. Have we achieved that? If not, why not? So should we make some changes? And at the beginning and end of each phase, so the objectives of this phase was that we will achieve all these things. Did we achieve all that? If not, what changes should be made? Should some of the targets be revised because the government has changed or because the outside scenario has changed? So that is called scenario analysis. So we have to make several changes like that. Should timelines be revised? We thought that could be done in 5 years, but actually the way it is going, we have reached only 15%. So we need to add a few more years. Should another target be added? So this is the process of stock taking. So contingency plan, meaning what will happen if this happens. So for example, let us say that our hospital is obstetrics dependent. Most of our work is obstetric related. And we have a doctor who has been there for 20 or so years as an obstetrician. But suddenly she decides to leave. So what will we do? That is a contingency plan. So 40% of our funds have been coming from outside the country. But suddenly the government has passed a law saying that external funding to non-governmental organizations will be stopped from December 1st, 2020. So what do you do for that 40%? Should we reduce our expenses? Are there other ways to increase income? So in India, we have tax exempt status. So all our mission hospitals are exempted from paying income tax. If this status was removed, 30% of our income has to be paid to the government. So suppose the government says your tax exempt status has been removed. So how can we still run the hospital paying 30% to the government and still taking care of poor people? So that is a contingency plan. So there is a big flood. So we frequently have floods here and the hospital is closed for 3 months. So what do we do? So now we had this COVID epidemic. So suddenly there are no patients in the hospital. It is similar to having the flood. So we had made a contingency plan. All these are plans that are written down for the future if something happens. So we had a contingency plan for floods. So according to the plan, we immediately stopped all unnecessary developmental activities and we gave a fixed salary to everyone. So all staff in our hospital received 12,000 rupees only. The rest of the salary is kept pending till our finances improve. So that is for 3 months. So suppose after 3 months the situation does not resolve, then we had another contingency plan for 6 months. And then if nothing happens for 9 months. So these are like emergency plans that we make for unexpected events. And outside, people are now moving towards accreditation and insurance. Should we also do that? It is going to become mandatory 5 years from now. So why not do it now? So these are based on scenario analysis. Our target population has changed. It was not what it was 20 years ago. So should we make a new, slightly modified plan to reach the same population today? So I always say, may God be the source of all wisdom, all strength, and all encouragement to us, to you. So we need to look at everything through God's eyes of faith. We need to come to the correct decision in every matter. God knows what is best. And He knows what will happen in the future. So we need to go to Him. And that is what I keep saying as God consciousness. Keep on imagining that God is there in your walking with you each day. He can understand your thoughts and words and actions. When you see a patient, you tell, Lord, may I not miss out anything. May I not miss something on his ultrasound or in his examination. And the same for every decision. Let God be the source of all our strength. We need to persevere. So we had decided to work for 30 years, but there were so many severe problems coming in our way. Give us the strength to manage in spite of all these inconveniences. Look past discouragements, look past obstacles. Many people discouraged us. They said this hospital will never survive. How come they are still coming for our board meeting? I thought they would have closed by now. But we need to be a bit thick-skinned and not look at what others say. We need to find encouragement from the words of God. My wife always keeps reading the Bible and every day finds new strength in verses and in songs. Maybe on the last day I will ask her to sing a song for us. And through God-given mentors, there are people who have gone through all these problems before us and who are available to advise and stand by us. And I would like to close with this assignment. What does God want me to do with my life? Let us ask. Not only for ourselves, but our departments, our institutions. What exactly is God's plan? If I did a SWOT on myself, what would it show? What are my personal strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? If I did the same for my department, for my institution, what will it show? What if I did a stock taking today? Is it something that would find approval in God's sight? And can I start the process of making a plan for the future today? So I hope that this session was useful. But unless we really work it out, it doesn't make sense. But if we can do it, these are called best practices. If we can follow these best practices, then even in spite of all our weaknesses, in spite of all our difficulties, we can work ourselves out with God's help. So burnout is not because of overwork. So that is, I think, the first thing to understand. It is because we have lost our passion. So suppose we are very passionate about something, no amount of work or difficulties or obstacles will cause burnout. The second problem causing burnout is because we have moved away from God. Because God is the source of powerful energy, powerful wisdom, powerful encouragement. So when we move away from that source, we suddenly find ourselves running on our own strength, our own wisdom, and our own, and there is no encouragement from ourselves. So that is where we become burnt out. So we need to sell our vision while winning their hearts. So the problem is not with the rebellious staff. So these are staff who are actually very passionate in their own way, but they have a different way of doing things. So I would stress on soft skills. So soft skills means inviting them for dinner, consoling them when they have difficulties, and becoming like family to them. So when we start doing that, then we start earning the right to talk. And then they can listen. Otherwise, they are not listening. So they are saying, oh, you are 20 years younger than me. What do you know? So there is a barrier which is we are not able to break. But when people start saying, oh, he is somebody I love. So for example, when I joined this hospital, I did not know that beta blockers could be used in cardiac failure, because one of the things we learned in medical college is beta blockers are contraindicated. But a young medical doctor joined our hospital, and he said, Dr. Vijay, that is changed now. There are some types of beta blockers which actually should be used. So I told him, please show me where you read that. So he brought an article, and after reading that, I felt this looks like a very novel but probably expensive drug. So I said, I don't think it will be available here. So a few weeks later, he said, Dr. Vijay, I just inquired, and it is available in Silchar. And not only that, it is only like 2 rupees. So why don't we try it out? So then I said, okay, try it out. So I had learned something new. So I think the way we speak to people is how we make change. So one of the major problems we had was with the church here. So when we first came here, they welcomed us and gave us garlands and all that and said, you are our saviors. And then they started saying that we used to get gifts during Christmas, and all our children would get free treatment and education. And we were thinking that we will be given a piece of land and a building also. So these are our expectations. So then I told them, see, that is not what is possible. We came here to work for poor people. So right now there's no money. So I can't give you any of these things. So then they said, then what's the point in being a Christian? So I was really shocked. So after a few years, not a few months, we felt we cannot be part of this group because they were the ones filing cases against us and creating a lot of difficulties. So we decided to wait for a period of time. So we met the leaders of this church and asked them, what do you think would be a reasonable period to expect changes? So they said, you should wait for 10 years. So we decided to wait for 10 years. And during that time, we had a lot of people coming and helping. We had a specialist in non-confrontational resolution, dispute resolution and things like that. But at the end of 10 years, we found that there was no change. So at the end of 10 years, we started our own chapel inside the hospital. So I think we should have red lines. Certain things that we cannot accept, and in certain things we can change. For example, Baptist tradition is different from Presbyterian tradition. I have been brought up in the Presbyterian tradition. What is wrong with becoming, adopting another tradition? There is no problem. So, but there are certain things we can't compromise, which are areas of integrity. So those we will say we won't accept. So our work was really hard in the early years, especially for my wife, because she was the anesthesiologist and the obstetrician with only maybe one other doctor to help her. And we had about, at the time, about 4,500 deliveries in a year, plus surgeries going on throughout the day and night. And then we had 2 children at home. So she found a lot of peace and strength by her close walk with God. Because her thing is that this is the portion that has been handed over to me by God. And if that is so, He will provide me with the strength. And she was able to work non-stop. She says one day she came home after not sleeping the whole day and night, and just as she reached home, she got a message saying that a lady had come in obstructed labor. So she was saying to God, when will all this stop? Maybe only when I die. But God reminded her through a verse that these people I have sent to you, and I will give you the strength to manage. So for many years, that was our. So when no new staff joined us, we had this promise: I will give you strength to manage. And then there will come a time when that will not be enough, and then I will provide you more people. So if he has put you in a place all by yourself, doing a lot of work, it means you have untapped energy. So God will provide that strength. And also another thing I want to say is to organize our time well. So when I joined CMC Vellore, I found that there were a lot of extra things that need to be done by a resident. So I could not keep up with it. But within a month or so, I had learned how to finish all that in a short period of time. So God will give wisdom and strength and encouragement to fulfill whatever responsibility that He has put us in. Like when we do surgery, a patient is actually giving his life into your hands. You're going to make him unconscious, and then you're doing something which he doesn't know anything about, and he hopes that he will come back to life, isn't it? So what a great responsibility. You can't mess upon that. So I don't like playing music or chatting and laughing while we are doing surgeries, or when I'm doing ultrasound, my whole faculties are on the screen. I should not miss something, something that makes a big difference for this particular person. So I feel we need to, first of all, understand that an enormous responsibility is given in our hands. Every stitch should be put in the right place. It should be tightened correctly. It should be in the right distance apart. And the second thing is that we don't know anything. It means we know. After 20 years working as a pediatric surgeon, I still call my professor of pediatric surgery and tell him, I just have a patient here. I have operated, and there is a problem in the lungs, not expanding. Or have you seen such a situation? Sometimes in the middle of surgery, I have found that the aorta is on the right, not on the left. I'm not able to see the esophagus. So we need to be always humble and say that I am teachable. And maybe teachable from a very junior doctor, somebody who has just learned something. And do you know what? The most accomplished people are actually the most teachable, because they don't fear anything. There is no feeling of superiority. So they know who they are, and anybody can come and say anything to them, and they will learn from everyone. So I think however experienced we are, till we die, we should be willing to learn.